everybody. Thank you for coming. I know it's hot out there and miserable, so thank you for taking a few minutes to join us today. What we're going to be talking about today is green operations are natural with quality management system. And what I hope you'll come away from this presentation understanding that a lot of the tools that you use every day now are going to help you with your green and your sustaining initiatives. So to introduce myself, my name's Mary McAtee. I work for a company called IBS America, and we're one of the largest providers of quality and compliance software in the world. We make products for shop floor control and a number of different applications. I run the implementation, training, and consulting groups, so we go out and work with all size companies, from big companies like Dana and Caterpillar down to little mom and pop companies that have quality requirements that they have to address. And I've been in quality assurance for getting close to 30 years at this point. And by education, I'm a mechanical engineer, reliability engineer. I'm also a certified lead assessor for ISO series of standards 9000 and 14000 for environmental. And I'm also a ticket assessor for software development as well. Came from, born in Kentucky and came from Ohio originally, but I'm now here in the New York area. So to jump right into this, I hear people talking about green, talking about sustaining. They use the terms interchangeably. They have a lot of things that they think it means, but what do you think of when you think of the term green? What does it mean to you? And it can mean different things to different people. The way I personally think about it is the personal versus the trend. Green is personal. It's what you do at home, whether you recycle cans, the different things that you do to make your world a better place. That's green. Sustainability is a trend. Sustainability is something that we're starting to see regulatory agencies look for. We're starting to see very large companies look at it as a means of doing their business better, saving money. So it's a trend. The definition of the conventionally accepted definition of sustainability is sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So in other words, you're not sacrificing the future to be able to do something short term. In short, it means sustainability means less waste. And that can be interpreted a variety of different ways, but in general, that's what it means. Green is the personal. Green is changing your lifestyle. It's in environmental terms, the practice of using methods that contribute to the health of this planet that we all share. Green living incorporates conservation into daily life, whether it be through consuming less non-renewable energy, recycling reusable items, or even eating less meat. The great part is that green does more to help the planet, and you discover you can save money. So that's green. But if you read these things, you start thinking of sort of a thing that you do as a personal initiative. What's driving the trend, the sustainability piece? What's driving that is government and market regulation. The SEC right now requires reporting on environmental risk. If you are a publicly held company, you have to report on your potential environmental risk. You have to have a means of doing that assessment. You have to have quantifiable numbers, and you have to provide those on a regular basis to the SEC, just like you do your annual report. In the EU and the European Union, companies already have to report on environmental risk, whether they're publicly held or not. Just the fact that they're doing business in an EU country means they have to report on environmental risk. The U.S. EPA has requirements in place right now for large plants, and they're starting to expand the application of that. You know, a lot of that is subject to funding, so if they get their budget cut, we can see a lag in that coming. But sooner or later, the EPA is going to be knocking on your door, looking for your carbon footprint, looking for your greenhouse emissions numbers, looking for your risk assessment. The automotive industry has been for years, and is currently even more so, affected by efforts to manage climate change risk. Risks are present throughout the value chain from suppliers to OEM and beyond. So The automotive industry gets requirements put on them. They push those requirements down to their supplier. The suppliers push those down to their supplier. OEMs are requesting supply chain greenhouse gas emission data to better understand the business risk and opportunities to its suppliers. So right now, if you're doing plating, if you're doing welding, robotic welding, if you're consuming a lot of water, that's going to become visible to the tier 1 supplier, and they may push you to make changes, or they may actually choose another supplier if it looks like what you're doing doesn't make sense, or you're not at least capturing alternatives. Industry leaders see values in sustainability. Top-tier companies are doing it. And they're doing it because it saves money. They're not doing it because bluebirds are going to circle a building and everybody's going to be happy that they're doing something that's sustainable. They're doing it because it has a financial benefit for them. It reduces the risk of public bad press. It's a hedge against future increases in commodity prices. If you have reduced your dependence on heating oil, if you have reduced your dependence on natural gas, if you reduce your dependence on water coming through, it's going to end up paying for you in the long run. It's going to have a benefit for you financially. They realized they could not operate sustainably without their suppliers on board. So this couldn't be an initiative that they said, we're just going to do this as a corporate initiative and we're not going to involve our suppliers. We're still going to go for the lowest price supplier. We're still going to go for the people who can deliver us something at the cheapest price. They said, we got to have a way to push this down on our supply chain and pull them into this as partners with us. So now they're pushing it down the supply chain, and one of the means they're doing that with is sustainability scorecards. Has anybody here been asked to start tracking that by a supplier yet? No? Well, you will. And what they'll do is they'll be sending you something that has different things like your consumption of water, your consumption of fossil fuels, the waste outputs, and they're looking at everything from what you use to water your lawn and grounds to water that you use in your production operation. Walmart reduced packaging by 20% and saved $3 billion. So what they did is they went to their suppliers and they said, come up with a more innovative, sustainable way to package what you ship to us. Reusable shipping cartons, less overpacks, more recycled materials than what you use for packaging, and it saved them $3 billion in 1 year. I mean, that's an enormous, enormous amount of money. So we're looking at 3 of the leaders here and starting to push these initiatives: Walmart, Pepsi, and Procter & Gamble. The view from the top. The CEO of Coca-Cola said, in a world where populations are growing, where natural resources are stressed, where communities are forced to do more with less, and where consumers' expectations are expanding, sustainability is the core to business continuity and survival. What they're saying, what he's really saying here, Mr. Kent is saying that if you don't pay attention to this, your competitor is, and they're going to step into your place and you're going to fall behind. It's not just something that you want to be able to tout in your marketing material. It's actually going to have a financial benefit, and it's going to make you more competitive. Some of the additional drivers for sustainability: you want to be able to reduce risk and prepare for crisis management. Among the issues around crisis management are things like industrial accident. Everybody sitting here, I'm sure, remembers Union Carbide in Bhopal, India. How many people can think of Union Carbide without coupling it with that event? Japan has just faced a similar situation with their nuclear industry. The damage that that does to a company's reputation is simply irreparable. W.R. Grace, everybody associates that with asbestos. And the litigation that came out of that was just brutal for W.R. Grace as a company and a lot of subcontractors and suppliers that were associated with W.R. Grace. There's also scientific pressures for green and sustainability. Global warming and climate change. They're accepted facts for the most part. There's things that are monitored and tracked, and there are conferences all the time looking for ways to squeeze your carbon footprint and squeeze your impact on the environment. Competitive pressures differentiate from the competition. What makes you different from the next guy that I might buy something from? What makes you to be a bit of a snowflake compared to everybody else that's selling the same thing that you sell? And the fact that you package it in a particular way, that you make it out of certain materials, that you can produce it more efficiently and hold your costs down, those are all things that differentiate yourself from your competitors. And also consumer demand. When people go in to buy something now, they're looking at the impact of that. They're looking at electric cars. They're looking at the Honda Accord and the kind of mileage that it gets even as a fossil fuel vehicle. Sustainability can drive innovation and create new revenue streams. FedEx actually has a consulting arm right now to go into companies to do shipping consulting and transportation consulting for sustainability, to reduce the dependence on transportation, to make the footprint of a shipping box smaller, to make the materials reusable and recyclable. It's now a huge portion of their business to do that sort of consulting with clients that they deal with and others. Another example is Cisco. Cisco went out and bought WebEx, which people are probably familiar with as a meeting tool. And they have used that as a $100 million revenue stream to be able to go into organizations and be able to show them that by reducing travel and transportation costs, by using virtual meeting, they really can save a lot of money by doing that. So these are just a couple of examples of drivers for sustainability. What are you trying to optimize with sustainability? Emissions, water usage. These are all areas that we can zone in where we want to make changes, where we want to do things. Energy and fuel use. Being able, if you're running ovens and certain other operation, can you recycle that heat back into your building to heat it or to cool it? Packaging, chemical use, recycling costs, and scrap. All equal reduced waste and an immediate impact on the bottom line. And the sort of things that we're talking about here, if you have an old and antiquated manufacturing line for a given process, it might actually be cheaper for you and pay you back and make you more competitive if you upgrade that to something that is more sustainable and also makes you a better player as a citizen of the world. So what does this have to do with your quality management system? A quality management system provides a holistic approach to proactively manage certain things related to environmental activity. Items such as performance. Are we doing things in an optimal, efficient fashion? Is there room for improvement there? Compliance. Are we doing things in a manner that meets our regulatory requirements? Are we disposing of things the way we should? Do we have MSDS documentation available? Are we following the disposal requirements for those? Competitive position. Are we certified and able to say you should buy from us because you're not going to have a problem down the road because of something that we have done wrong? Analysis of current state. One of the things a good quality system does is it always has as its backbone a good audit program. And that can tell you a lot about the current health of your business related to sustainability in addition to other things that you do. Quality management system goals fit nicely with sustainability. Reducing defects, reducing scrap, reducing customer complaints, and continuous and continual improvement. And those two words mean two different things. One is looking for the opportunity to improve, and the other is demonstrating improvement, even if it's incremental. So those are two things that are very, very important. But if we looked at all these things, I guarantee you, you're doing it now. You're doing it for your ISO registration. You're doing it for TS 16949, 13485. You're just not looking at the environmental and health and safety and sustainability elements. The key elements of a QMS that support a sustainability initiative are things like environmental management for ISO 14000, occupational health and safety, supplier controls, document and data control, training, CAPA, corrective and preventive action, non-conforming material report analysis, and assessment for both risk and compliance. Being able to quantify risk and then being able to see whether or not you're doing things in a like fashion. Many of the functions or closed-loop quality management systems support sustainability. Corrective and preventive action, CAPA, quickly tracks root cause, sources, and cost-reducing waste. Non-conforming materials slow efficiency, affect product quality, create waste materials, they waste time and money, and they negatively impact reputation. Word gets around quickly. It's a small community of people who typically purchase something from someone. And if the word goes around that you can't deliver on time, or that there's product quality issues, or that you have regulatory issues for other reasons, then that can be a big problem for you. The dimming wheel that everybody's familiar with, I'm not going to dwell on this, applies to sustainability as well. What have you planned for? What are your goals? What do you want to do? Have you analyzed and put empirical numbers together with the areas where you do want to invest money and address? How are you going to do that? Do you have the resources to do it? Do you have the knowledge and the expertise to do it? Or if once you do it, has it given you the results that you want? Are people on board with it? Is it paying off? Is it giving you that benefit? If it's not, how do you adjust that? How do you make changes to bring it into compliance with what you thought you would get as a benefit? All of this applies. And there's a couple of graphics in here that kind of give you an idea of what's going on in a lot of organizations, whether we're talking about sustainability, or whether we're talking about quality, or whether we're talking about health and safety. And one of those things is we all work very hard, and we all do the best job that we can. What we don't do well, or many companies do not do well, is when we have to hand something off to somebody else, or somebody has to hand something off to us. Those handshakes, where information passes, where material passes, where process passes. Typically, companies struggle with this. And the more they grow and the better they do, the more they struggle with it. Little guys tend to do it better than big guys, for the most part. But a lot of time what you see are organizational and functional silos of information. When I go into an organization, I'll start talking to them about environmental, along with talking with them about their quality initiatives that they're trying to bring in place. I'll say, are you considering sustainability and environmental issues with this? And they'll say, no, you have to talk to another group of people for that. Well, what about safety incidents? Is that going to be part of your corrective action system? No, you got to talk to this guy over here for that, and this woman over here is responsible for this. There's no coordination between those groups. They don't leverage the same tools, and that's really, really important. And that's something that you're paying for these tools anyway. You've got people educated on how to use them. Why do you need a different corrective action system for health and safety and environmental? Why do you need a different assessment system? Why can't you embed environmental and sustainability requirements into your process analysis, into your FEMAs, into your control plans, all of those things? Why is it separate and distinct? What's unique about it? Does it have to be that way? A lot of times I'll talk to people and I'll say, well, the standard says it has to be separate. Standard doesn't say it has to be separate. It doesn't say that at all. As a matter of fact, you'll probably get applauded for merging those things together. And where you want to end up is something like this. And really the top one, the two guys with the spyglasses, is the most important. You want to have some visibility to be able to have senior management see what's going on, for floating that information up to them. There should not be a layer between them and quality or sustainability or environmental or health and safety. And also, your processes ought to take these things into consideration. It should not be separate and distinct functions within your organization that each take a crack at something. It ought to be in concert. It ought to be for the same goals. It ought to be supporting the same objectives. So some of the benefits of 14,000, if you haven't considered it, is to improve your relationship with regulators and eliminate non-compliant fines. The people that you annoy and run afoul of for environmental are different than having your ISO auditor not be happy with you. You can't write a corrective action plan and swear to send no more and you're done. For the environmental piece, there's usually a fine involved. There's usually some sort of impact. usually some sort of right to know requirement. You got to reach out and notify people that you've done something. So not something that you necessarily want to run afoul of. And this can keep you out of that area. Studies show that 14,000 certifications and associated significant positive market reaction. People are pleased when they see you're registered to 14,000. It gives your customers and your tier 1 people that are purchasing from you a bit of comfort, a bit of calmness that you comply with these requirements, and you have these elements as part of your functional management system. 14,000 certified companies have increased by 70% between 2004 and 2008. 14,000 has been around a long time, but we haven't seen the sort of interest in it that we're seeing now. It's only been within the last few years that we've seen it really take hold in the U.S. It was always very popular in Europe. They jumped right on the bandwagon over there, but it was not over here because people were worried about litigation. They were worried about public exposure of information around that. And now, because it's happening anyway for other reasons, that concern has gone away a bit, and we're seeing more interest in that area. So the bottom line, in the great philosopher Yogi Berra, and I look to him for wisdom all the time, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So if you look at how your organization's set up, and everybody's out there and they're working hard, but they're all doing different stuff, how do you know what's working and what's not working for you? If you've got a lot of diversity in how people attack the same task, that's a problem, because you don't know where to put your dollars and your time, because you can't attack everything. Can't fix everything. There's just not enough money and not enough people. So what you need to do is you need to try and get everybody doing the same thing, even if it's wrong. As a matter of fact, if they're all doing it wrong, you'll be able to quickly identify, wow, we're doing that wrong. But if one guy's doing it right and one guy's doing it wrong and one's doing it half wrong and half right, it's going to make it that much harder for you. So first of all, document and train for consistency. You have to do that for ISO 9000. You got to do it for 14,000 and sustainability. Then audit for compliance. Once you've got everybody trained, you've got things documented, are people doing what you train them to do, and are they doing it repeatably? Or when you audit, a lot of times what you find out is they can't do it the way you documented it. So then you start doing change. So you need to do formal problem and correction protocols. You have to do that for ISO 9000, you have to do it for 14,000, you have to do it for 18,000, and you have to do it for sustainability. Determine the effectiveness and use of formal incremental change management. One of the biggest problems we see people have is they decide they want to start dealing with sustainability and they start changing everything instantly. So they have no idea what changes are causing them a problem, which ones are giving them a positive result, why did they make this change, who made this change, who authorized this change, when did this change happen, how did we do it before. All that body of information gets muddled. So have some sort of change management system in place and use it. Whether it's design change sign-off, engineering change request, treat it like you're changing any process in your business, anything that you manufacture and develop. Drive for continual improvement in your goals and objectives. Set a target for where you want to be, and then track your steps to that target. Celebrate those little steps to get there. If you train people to be able to do something towards reducing water, celebrate that. Then take on the next step, then take on the next step. Don't set goals that you can't attain with the resources you have and the money you have. Obtain high-level support and participation in management. Sustainability and environmental should be part of your management review, whether you're registered to 14,000 or not. You should be considering this. You should be sitting in front of your management saying, we use 10,000 gallons of water a month to water the ground. Probably they don't know that. They don't realize that. So making sure that they understand what's going on, making sure they understand the initiative will make them more likely to fund them, to apply resources, and to give some direction around that. And the last one is rinse and repeat. Don't do this as something you do as a project and then you stop doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it in cycles. This ought to be part of how you live your life. This is something I always tell people for ISO 9000. There's a big flurry when somebody gets registered, and then you just settle into trying to pass the surveillance audit every year. And you don't necessarily get the benefits you thought you were going to get. It just becomes something where people go clean stuff up, look for things that didn't get done, and they just try and clean that up. And you don't want to do that. You want to have this become ingrained in how you do your work every day and how you live your life as an organization. You want to start tracking and correcting environmental incidents. You want to sharpen your emergency procedures and responses. I guarantee you've got them somewhere in your organization, but I'll bet the quality guys haven't looked at them, and I'll bet you that the training requirements for that are very different than training requirements you have for other things. You want to schedule and execute internal assessments and supplier assessments. You want to track your licenses and permits and identify and analyze environmental issues. Just quickly in summation here, one of the things we're looking at for the future, 9001 and 14000 are probably going to be combined into a single Uber standard. I'm actually going to a conference in Boston where that's going to be discussed tomorrow. So you can see a merging of those standards over the next few years, and then people are just going to take exception to the parts that don't apply to them or that they don't choose to include in their scope. There's a draft out of ISO 5001, which is Energy Management Systems and Requirements and Guidance for Use, and that is all built around sustainability. So that's coming, and that's going to be a registration standard. NIST published guidelines to assure that the measurements being made are accurate and comparing apples to apples. And they use the Zachman framework, which is pretty common, to take a series of questions and matrix to figure out how you're going to address a standard. If you're not familiar with that, I'd try and get that from NIST and consider using that, because it can be really, really helpful. And then there's a plethora of other industry and customer mandated requirements. To wrap up here, IBS, we do software. We do software for quality control, shop floor control, quality management, ISO 14000. We interface with your MES and enterprise system, and we do training and consulting for those things as well. These are some of our customers. I have a card up here, and I thank you for your time today. Thank you.